Did you guys know that every single Transcendence and regular hero tenants have a certain what we'll call multiplier when it comes to being a tenant? No, we're not necessarily talking about the one where it bases on your class. It depends on the hero themselves. Now, I've seen a lot of confusion going around in our communities between multiplier and just like your stat growth kind of format. But here's the weird thing. They change it all the time. Like in this last patch, we literally had 4 heroes have like an increased HP growth rate for a tenant stat, but it's different than for the normal hero. And today Lexi is going to help us understand this a little bit better because there is a lot of information here and a lot of confusion going on when it comes to how tenants work in actual locations. And we also have to give a shout out to a few different people. Lexi, of course, Sad Guy Luke, Baldy, Dethroy, Ternimus. There's a couple other people I might mention as well, but they're basically the ones that kind of curated all of this information from the data mine files, and that's how we can now give you better screenshots and images to show you what the actual growth rate path is for certain heroes and why certain ones are much stronger than others. Hopefully you guys enjoy this one. It's a data-driven video, but if you want to know more about the game and how to optimize your account, definitely stay tuned to this one. Let's jump right into it. Again, big shout out to Lexi for a lot of this information. We're even going to have a kind of image at the end thanks to Akudemon, who is a Russian YouTuber as well. So here's basically what Lexi is saying to help everybody kind of understand a little better, because again, there has been confusion between multiplier verbiage, growth rate of heroes, things like that, your stat growth, things like that. So it says all tenants use base stats. No passives are used, and hero glossary stats are not accurate for tenants. You can't just go with the glossary to go off of that. The hero's current stats on the hero card also don't matter when you're actually calculating the tenant calculations, which that's something I didn't even know about for the longest time. This means all heroes are the exact same tenants, except they have very unique multipliers for the class and each hero. So as we know, this is the typical multiplier we talk about. Rangers, Warrior, Mages all have the exact same tenants, no difference. The way that their stats scale are the same. They all provide 1.68% attack and 2.2086 times the HP. You'll notice the HP is the same for all 5 classes. However, Priest and Assassin, this is why Priests are always like lower than any Ranger, Warrior, and Mage that is a Transcendence hero when it comes to a tenant, and then below that, Assassins are even further down. So that's part of it. That's just a single part of it. Then tenant stats are determined by base stats and base stat growth rate, which is unique for Transcendence heroes, but the same for all other heroes. You can see down the bottom, all regular non-Transcendence heroes have a growth rate of 50 attack and 1200 HP. But you'll notice the Transcendence heroes are much better. This is why sometimes a Sword Flash is still a better tenant than a Ranger, Warrior, Mage non-Transcendence hero because of this stat growth rate. Even though their percentage, their multiplier is much lower as a tenant, they go up much higher. So the big one most people care about is this left column. The right column is the HP growth. I guess that's if you have some supports in there, but most people only have 2 to 3 maxed out houses, and those are going to be straight for attack for your big damagers, your Lord of Fear Aspens, Star Swordsman Mockman, Doom Terminator Vulcan. That is where that is mainly going to be coming from here. So you'll see a few of them are really high. You got Sword Flash here. However, Sword Flash suffers from the Assassin attack multiplier rate. You have Sunvower Eos 100, which is mainly one of the reasons why she is one of the highest tenants possible. You also have LDA. You also have surprisingly enough, Mutated Fungus Geester has the highest rate, but again suffers because he is an assassin and it feels pretty bad. Most other heroes are in the 90ish range. There are some like Asmodel the Dauntless, which is way down there, Fairy Queen Vessa way down there, Blood Tide Queen Arania way down there. And then there also Star Swordsman Mockman at 85, Starwing Jara at 85. Everybody else is pretty much in the 90 to 100 range. So what that means is you need to have a combination of these stats when we're doing the math on this, and the multipliers for Tenant. And that's really, really interesting. And that's why some things on your hero, like you can add sublimations to your tenants that have the percentage buffs. Those don't get calculated into your tenant, which is really interesting. And something we kind of knew for a while, but we didn't know exactly why. On to page 2. This is where it gets really into the nitty gritty here. So you can see here, the level stats equals the growth rate stat times 10. Plus the growth rate stat times the level minus 1, and then all that is multiplied by 2.2. Note 2.2 as a tier multiplier determined by the tier of the hero. The tier is indicated by the number of purple hexagons on the hero summary page, word under tier. The hero gets 20% base HP and attack per tier. At E5, this is considered tier 6, which is 1 plus 6 times 0.2, which equals that 2.2. So basically, all the way up to E5, that's what matters. But when you have a 10 star and lower, that's why the growth rate and everything is much, much lower. Next up, we have the raw stat change equals gear attack fixed plus stone attack fixed plus imprint attack. Note, raw stats are now the same as fixed stats, which, as the game indicates, are added to the end of the calculations. This is why a lot of these things here are getting pretty insane, because we have a lot of fixed attack coming from things like Treasure Train. That's the biggest one. Of course, Star Spawn and our Cloud Island galleries provide it as well, but not nearly as much. And those literally just get added in to your, like, the attack that you have on your stone. You know how you, like, your attack stone is a percentage and a fixed stat. Well, you get that flat stat. And then you also have the imprints, what come from the V4 imprinting. So again, really, really interesting how that calculates out. The rest of this here is the level, the raw change. Then you have the gear multiplier, enable multipliers, fixed enable scaling, class, stone, skin, artifact, building percentage. And then this is the big part at the end. 1 plus the awakening divided by 100 or 10,000. This is why having a higher stat awakening is so important, because you're also multiplying all of that up against those fixed stats that we're now getting, which is pretty insane. All that treasure train and stuff like that, you're basically just adding it in the fixed and everything, and then it's just getting multiplied by a multiplier. That's why such a stronger hero copy becomes so many more stats the better treasure train you have. Note, fixed enable scaler is a scaler from enabling a hero. This scales by 14% HP and 10% plus attack per enable. 2C just assumes that all heroes are at least E5. 2C is the bot that Lexi has that helps get all this data mine information. If you ever hear the reference 2C, that's the bot that is just insanely awesome. Trees are an additive increase to the tenant attack scaling. Tree levels are split into 20 level groupings. So the first 20 levels is T0 and all the way forward. This is going to be for your the tree of origin. This is going to be the different tiers getting that. So T0 is essentially the one that unlocks your core of origin, and then you got, of course, the active, passive, and then I think T5 just means you're up to level 120. Lastly, Destiny transition levels are similar to Tree and have both fixed stats and scalars that apply to a tenant. More info is going to be coming soon. And then a note says class value of the class scalar is listed above. So yeah, that class part is the class scalar that we're talking about over here. So you can see how this gets pretty crazy. Last but not least, this is made by Akudemon right here. Absolutely amazing infographic. Let me just center it on the screen for you guys. And this does a lot of the calculations as far as like what the most optimal is going to be. You can also see, I want to make sure you guys see these up here. I want to make sure these are very relevant. Akudemon has a VK website for idle heroes here. So if you want to go to t.me/VK idle heroes, and then Lexi, of course, grabbing all the information. She streams on Twitch, twitch.tv/XIAIKA. So Yeah, that's some pretty good info, but on top of that, just take a look at this chart right here. This kind of gives you the exact example that we're talking about, how SDE has one of the highest stats. We now know that Therapist Blood Betty is actually the second best hero to be a tenant, technically. Sadly, she's not a tenant for like anybody of real value, and you can immediately see just because they're priests, they fall down to 13 to 15, and just because they're assassins, they drop down from 16 to 18. So you can kind of see, even though MFG, LDA, and Sword Flash SFX have the best attack stat line, like per level and everything, they fall off just because of that multiplier, and it's just absolutely insane. And basically anybody on this list is going to be stronger than a non-Transcendence hero. So if you guys are looking to build your team up, this is important. Akudemon put this together. Lexi got all the data and put together and everything, and they calculated the maximum value possible pretty much for a hero. Kind of insane that you could get almost 17 million attack just from a SDE, Sun Devour Eos, but yeah, that's the information. If you guys ever wondered how your tenant stats are figured out, this is it right here. Hopefully you guys enjoy this one. I'll see you guys next time.